Welcome class to chapter 11, otherwise known as presentation aids. This is a very short chapter, but I am extending it a little bit because what I am going to be doing is actually showing you two videos. So without further ado, let's get you going. Presentation aids have several functions. One of them is to assist you with thinking, not fully take it away, but fully assist you. Presentation aids are also there to encourage your retention. So that way, if it's not just on your cue cards and you lose your train of thought, you can look towards your slides or whatever your aids are. So that way they can encourage your retention. They're also there to excite multiple senses, not just for you, but for your audience as well. Presentation aids are also there to encourage the body and create interest, and to also simplify complexity. Now, the fourth one in terms of engaging the body and create interest. Let's just say this particular thing is a presentation aid. It kind of is. And I am in front of my audience. You sort of work with it, pivot and work with it, possibly look at it, but look at your audience as well. What you don't want to do is completely pivot to the point where you're just looking at the presentation aid and not at your audience. Because what that does, if you notice, is that your back is to your audience. And that's very discouraging and disconnecting. So when you do presentation aids, whether it's online or whether it's in front of people, you have to be very cognizant and mindful of your body and how it's positioned according to whatever presentation aid that you are using. Let's get back to sharing this screen, shall we? Now, with presentation aids, as we've said before, it kind of heightens the audience's interest. It also shifts the attention away from the speaker just enough, not too much, just enough. It gives the speaker greater confidence in the presentation as a whole. It actually reduces your stage fright when used properly. That's something to think about. It actually gives you more credibility and it makes you look more professional than coming in with absolutely nothing. And it actually helps you to be better prepared for your full speech. Presentation aids can be anywhere from a PowerPoint to videos, sound, moving image, 3D figures, props, pictures, as well as stats and data information. As you can see, I am using a PowerPoint. You've known before that as I conduct class, I use video as well. You can use 3D figures. Obviously, this is not one, but you understand that's actually a prop. Pictures you can see off to the side of this video screen. Stats and data information that you can actually incorporate in your PowerPoint. When it comes to graphs, you can do anything from bars to lines, pies, pics, illustrations, and of course, posters. If you have models, they can be objects. Now, underneath that, if you are watching this and it says what was discussed earlier, what happens with if you take something as much as an object and as a model? What could possibly happen is that your intention is to show it around the room. Remember, if you are in front of people and you have anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 to 50, however many people you are presenting to, and if you have a model and you start to slowly send it around so that way they can see the 3D figure, whatever it is that you are showing. What that does is it takes the attention away from you, the presenter. At least, if not one, all of them, and possibly at different times or possibly at the same time. So my advice is that if you do need a 3D figure or some sort of a model to present, to pass around, but try and do that as best as you can. If not, what you can do actually, or what may be best for you, is to actually have that 3D figure up on the screen so that all of them still have your attention, or you have their attention. My apologies. This presentation chapter talks about what cannot work. And I have discussed this in the past. Be prepared and don't let that scare you. By that, I mean that if a video that you decide to show stops or is not queued up properly, you do need to remember that it should not be scaring you. You should know where you are at in the presentation and you should continue to go on. I've seen several people, not a lot, thankfully, but several freeze up. What you can do is just continue to roll with the punches, because what that actually allows you to do is to um, tell your audience that you are credible enough to continue without whatever video or whatever type of presentation aid that you had that failed you at the moment. Don't let the aid be a distraction from your message. Plan out strategically in proper places where you are going to present your aids. Make it clarify and strengthen your idea. Limit your text. Don't put so much on the slide. And remember, don't make the text too small to fit everything into it. For this matter, I always say, do as I say, not as I do, because we do know, or we have seen where I have actually not done the greatest job when it comes to putting these PowerPoint slides together. What I'm going to do right now is actually show you a presentation video that I have seen in the past. Let's go back to this. And let's go through this.
Quadruple checking notes.
Sorry about that.
People file in, getting the computer ready, and asking everyone to take a seat. Pretending to click something on the computer to cover up the fact that I don't know what to do with myself. Arriving just in time.
Wrapping up our conversation about a popular TV show we watched last night.
Disdain for popular TV show.
Mediocre icebreaker joke. That doesn't quite land. Attempt to redeem myself by making fun of that guy.
Laughing at that guy.
Laughing because he's laughing and I like him.
Not laughing, and now checking out for the rest of the session.
Title, dramatic pause of my presentation.
Question about how long this session will last?
Annoyed, vague response.
Exaggerated eye roll.
Poignant quote from unknown philosopher to kick off presentation in dramatic fashion. Juvenile slide transition to spice things up. Reading a long paragraph exactly as it appears on the PowerPoint slide about a shocking statistic I just learned about, followed by all kinds of vague lingo that no one will remember 2 seconds from now, capped off by 3 bullet points. Proudly pause to make sure everyone notices my awesome clip art choice. Out of date pop culture reference.
Correction about the pop culture reference.
Defending pop culture reference by citing social networking site no one uses.
Audible sigh to make sure everyone knows this is a complete waste of my time.
Serious and somewhat over the top reminder about how important this information is. Unexpected technical difficulty. Embarrassment. People can see my desktop background.
Snide remark about how Macs are better than PCs.
Desperate plea for IT guy.
Fixing the problem with an annoyed look on my face so that everyone knows how good at computers I am.
Unfunny video I'm really proud of having created myself.
Texting my friend in a way that I think is discreet.
Clearly aware of the texting. Prefacing a preface of a preface so that no one really understands the point that I'm prefacing. And now, going through a long list of facts, one by one by one, asking if anyone has any questions. Reminding everyone there are no bad questions. Hoping if I wait long enough, someone will finally have a question. concluding by restating the title of my presentation and dismissing everyone. Excited that someone came back for a follow-up conversation.
Grabbing pen that I accidentally left.
So as you can see, class, that it's a very weird third person like presentation of poorly presentation. I'm going to cancel that really quickly and then go back to sharing, or I should say stop sharing. But it hit the points where the Prezi was, or the slides and going through, just was trying to be over the top. People were bored. You have a mishap in terms of trying to make things go through and something wasn't working and you needed the IT guy. These were all in relation to what can go wrong and how it can be boring. He tried to make clip art look fantastic when in fact it just wasn't. And so those are some of the things that you do need to be aware of when you are putting together your presentation. And basically that was what not to do. So let's go into other things that I can show you about. Back to this. Sorry about this. Let's look at this one last time, my last slide. We've already covered that. For your PowerPoint guidelines, know your options. Flexibility when it comes to color, your background, and your font. Try and keep it as simple as you possibly can. Have a backup plan if all else fails. In your ebook, that's along page 234. And consider your audience at all times. Your presentation aids, when you deal with objects, it's something that you can pass around. But remember what I said, what may end up being the fallout where someone's concentration is going to be taken away from you should you be passing things around. So that's something that's very cognizant that you do need to be aware of. If it's too big or too small or simply not available, bring in a model. You can use pictures and drawings. You can try and use as much creativity as you possibly can, whether it's PowerPoint that you can use within this system, a Prezi or a Keynote. Those are things to consider when putting together a presentation aid. Graphs and charts, we've already known about those. Video, here's one thing. Should you be using a video, and I encourage those as well, make sure that it is queued up and hopefully edited. What you don't want is some sort of, like if you're going to use something that has slang, I'd like to think that you've tried to edit that slang out. And if not, we'll do the best in terms of going over that or like getting past that. But again, your video needs to be queued up. Remember that the video counts towards your total time. So that is about, if your presentation is supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes long, and your video is 4 minutes, think about it. You only have 3 minutes left to talk between your intro, your body, as well as your conclusion. So queue up as much as you can, maybe even shorten it out or even stop it when it's appropriate. But remember that all that is in consideration when it comes to your full-blown presentation. So if that means that, you know, if you found a 7-minute video, you may only need to use a minute, minute and a half. So be very strategic with that as well. Presentation aids include display visuals only when talking about them. Try not to like blow past them. Explain them clearly and concisely. Practice as much as you possibly can when it comes to your presentation aids. As much as you practice about your delivery, you also need to practice with your visuals. Remember, they are there to enhance your message and not take away. And they're not, and it's your visuals are not supposed to be just about that. It's your presentation is also supposed to be about you and the message that you bring. You are talking to the audience, not the visual. Be mindful, like I said earlier, not to turn your back when the audience, when an aid is up and going. Now, I do want to show you another video, so let's
Directly
get
from a
going.
visual aid, or even just having them displayed behind you while you repeat them word for word, doesn't help your audience retain the material. In fact, it's distracting and it pulls the attention away from what's important.
You, the speaker. When it comes to a visual aid, cliches like less is more and a picture is worth 1,000 words are actually relevant.
You see, the purpose of any effective visual aid is to supplement your presentation. What you say as a speaker should be what captivates the audience, not the material displayed behind you. Concise bullet points with keywords are good substitutes for large blocks of text or complete sentences.
This isn't to say that all visual aids are distracting and unnecessary, or that they should just be boiled down to a list of bullet points. They can be a great tool for emphasizing the structure and main points of your presentation, as long as you use them effectively. Headers, for example, remind your audience of what topic you're discussing.
Clear organization and bullet points like these can only get you so far, however. The key here is visual, and words are rarely exciting to look at. Use visual aids to clearly display graphs and data, or to show relevant images. Strong visuals have the power to evoke emotional responses with your audience and keep them engaged.
In this video, we will discuss a variety of ways to effectively create a strong visual aid. There are a lot of tips and tricks that seem like common sense, but often go unnoticed, as well as a whole arsenal of new tools and ideas that you can implement into your own presentations.
The first thing to consider when creating a visual aid is your audience. Are you speaking to your peers? Experts? How much do they know about your topic? Does your visual help you explain it appropriately? Does your audience appreciate humor, or are they looking for a more serious presentation? The makeup and mindset of your audience is going to affect the design of whatever type of visual aid you use. Incorporating a meme or a pop culture reference may be useful in connecting with your classmates on a fairly informal presentation, but won't be appreciated if you're presenting to a panel of experts. Knowing your audience can also help you create an engaging presentation that they will want to listen to. Be sure to pay attention to the assignment guidelines before starting any project. Even though your physical audience will typically be your peers, you may be expected to present as if they were someone else, perhaps to enforce formality or to focus your presentation. Once you have considered the parameters you have to work in, you are ready to start designing your visual aid.
The first thing to think of when you put together any visual aid is the saying, less is more. You don't want to distract your audience with too many pictures, too much text, too much data, or dizzying transitions. Always keep in mind the purpose. Your visual supplements the information that you provide as a speaker. If you keep your visuals clean and clear, you'll also keep your audience's attention.
This doesn't mean you should overload your visual with just any image, however. Find quality images and think carefully about the effect of the visual you choose. Avoid using clip art and stock photos to demonstrate your point. Really put in the effort to find images that say exactly what you want them to and evoke the right response from your audience.
It's also helpful to use themes to make your visual aid cohesive. This means more than just using a pre-selected setting on PowerPoint. You can customize a theme or create your own and save it for other presentations. Themes can also apply to specific areas of the visual aid as well. Keep the same color scheme going throughout your presentation, use photos that complement each other, and stick with the same font or fonts to make your visual aid look polished and professional.
Looking like you're prepared is never enough, though. The most important part of using a visual aid in a presentation is to practice with it. Remember, the visual aid is only there to supplement your spoken word. Don't use it to create an illusion of understanding or to distract your audience from the fact that you don't know your material. Get into a classroom and test it out. See how your visual works in the space you'll be presenting, and come to the speaking center to rehearse and get some feedback.
One final piece of advice is to never be afraid of a little creativity. Visual aids are not exclusive to PowerPoint or other slideshow presentations. These are excellent tools when created correctly, but they're often overused. Think of all the other exciting things you could use to visually reinforce your main points. You can check out a few good examples in the next section.
Let's review. First, for strong visual aids, consider your audience. Once you know who you're presenting for, start working on your presentation. 2, remember,
Less is more. Try not to overload your visual. It's only meant to supplement the content that you provide as a speaker.
Third, pay attention to the quality of the images you use. It's best to avoid clip art and stock photos.
4, when you're putting together the presentation, consider applying cohesive themes. This goes for the background, color schemes, images, and fonts.
Fifth, once you're finished, you need to practice your presentation to really make sure you know how to work within the space that you're given.
And finally, 6, be creative. Don't just settle for any average visual aid. Really put in the effort to make something new.
Now that you know how to put together an effective visual aid, it's time to see some examples in action.
Click Next in your Canvas window to continue.
Well, I wish I can say that, but apparently that's not the case. There may be some stuff in your Canvas window that actually allows you to see other areas, but I don't have that at the moment, and I do apologize for that in advance. You've seen this chapter, chapter 11. It basically talks about the basics when it comes to presentation aids. I've given you a video of what not to do, and I've given you a video of what will work for you. So take all that information, marinate on it, and don't forget to practice when it comes to your presentation aids. They can be just as crucial and to make your speech that much more of a success.